I buried my husband on Tuesday. On Wednesday, my children tried to bury me in a basement they called cozy. They arrived with carpet samples and a salesman's smile, trailing the smell of fried chicken they hadn't cooked. "It's just until you're steady," my daughter said, nudging the basement door with her toe as if it might purr. "We'll make it nice. A quilt. A little TV. Greg can put in a half bath." She used the voice you reserve for skittish animals or customers you don't plan to see again. My son unfolded a list. "There are forms," he said. "Bills, mail. The bank needs a point of contact. I'll be your point of contact. And this is a separate thing. If you sign a limited power of attorney, we can handle the boring parts. You shouldn't be alone with all this, Mum." All this was the house Daniel and I painted in July heat, ceilings dripping onto our eyelids, the garden we terraced with railroad ties and stubbornness, the mortgage we paid in bits and prayers. All this was the kitchen where my husband's coffee cup left a circle on the table the morning he collapsed in the driveway. The circle was still there. My daughter set her elbow on it. "Cozy," she repeated, tasting the word like a cherry she wasn't sure she wanted. "How could my own children look at the home I built and see a basement?" I asked. I meant to keep it in my head. It slid out anyway. "No one is trying to take anything from you," my son said. Tone calm and reasonable, the way people sound when they've practiced. "We're simplifying. That's love, Mum. Simplifying." Daniel used to song grief is a fog that makes predators look like trees. I spent the morning after his funeral polishing the sink because the steel held still. I polished while they talked. I listened as if the faucet and I were both considering our options. "The bank manager is expecting a call," my son went on. "I told him, well, we'll loop him in. And there's something about the deed. Don't worry, it's housekeeping. Titles need updating after," he swallowed the word. "After." I rinsed the sponge, wrung it dry, folded it once. "When you were 12, I said, you tried to sign my name on a permission slip, and I made you run it through the shredder while I watched." He smiled, remembering. "I was an idiot." "Yes," I said, "but honest about it." My daughter tested the banister with a little bounce. "We'll make it nice," she said again. "Warm rugs. A reading chair. You'll have privacy. And we can Airbnb the upstairs. The market is wild right now." Greg, the son-in-law with new tools and old debts, cleared his throat. "It's not about money," he said, which meant it was exactly about money. "It's about safety. Stairs are dangerous." "I built those stairs," I said. He didn't look. None of them did. They were reading from a script, chasing the ending they thought they had already bought. "Grief makes you soft at the edges, but not blind." The fog around me was thin. I could see the shapes moving in it. I could smell the paper. "I'll think about the basement," I said, and my son relaxed, the way people do when they think a door has opened. "Leave the forms," I added. "I'll review them." "We can do it together," my daughter said quickly. "Tonight." "Tomorrow," I said, "after I speak to the bank myself." Something flickered in my son's eyes, annoyance, fear, and then smoothed away. "Of course," he said. "We'll pick you up." "You can meet me there?" I said. 10 o'clock. I smiled, the old smile I used when they were small and lying about cookies. It knew where it was going. When the door closed behind them, the house exhaled. I went to the closet, reached behind Daniel's winter coat, and found the shoebox where I keep the things you don't explain to anyone. Copies of documents, a flash drive, and a note Daniel wrote when the doctor first said the word that rattled in his chest. Not the fatal word. The warning: check the titles. Don't sign anything at home. Call Leon if they push. You're tougher than they remember. Leon was a retired judge with the posture of a lighthouse. He answered on the first ring. I was waiting for your call, he said. How are you? Awake, I said, and very tired. I'm coming over, he said. 15 minutes. When a man who has buried more friends than he can count says he is coming to your house, you don't argue. I put the kettle on and set out the good cups. By the time the water boiled, Leon was at my table, reading the forms my children had left. He was quiet while he read, a frown weighing down the edges of his mouth. They got these from the internet, he said finally. They look official because they are messy. The limited power of attorney is anything but. The deed transfer is blank where it should not be. And this, he tapped a page with a wet finger from his tea. This would put the house in joint tenancy with right of survivorship in your son's name. If you sign and something unexpected happens, you could be out of your home before your tea cools. Unexpected, I said. A fall, a mild stroke, a notary who doesn't ask enough questions. He looked at me. Do you want blunt? I'm 72, I said. Blunt is a relief. They plan to get you downstairs and your name off upstairs within a week, he said. They'll dress it in concern, but the bones are money. The kettle ticked as it cooled. I folded the forms, smoothed the tabs. They were kind to their father, I said. They sat with him. They came to appointments. Grief is a hot wind, Leon said. It dries some people and sets others on fire. I thought of my son's eyes slipping when he said bank. I thought of my daughter's elbow on the coffee ring and the sales pitch she had practiced. What do I do first? I asked. He wrote 3 lines. 1. Freeze your credit. 2. Call the bank manager yourself. Tell him no one speaks for you. 3. Tomorrow at 9, you and I go to Ms. Alvarez. She'll set up a life estate or a ladybird deed. You keep control. Your children will have nothing to sell from under you. And a 4th, he added, softer. Call your doctor. Get a capacity letter for your file. You don't need it. But if anyone tries to say you do, it's already there, dated and sober. I made the calls that afternoon. The bank manager, a man in his 60s with a gentle way of saying dangerous things, lowered his voice. I'm glad you called, he said. An online change of address request came through this morning, redirecting your statements to your son's email. Our system flagged it because it was new territory. I put a hold on everything pending your instruction. Keep it on hold, I said. Nothing changes unless I walk in with identification and speak to you, personally. Understood, he said. After a pause, I'll be at my desk at 10. I'll watch for you. That night, I slept in Daniel's flannel shirt and put my phone on Do Not Disturb. In the quiet hours, I lay awake, not thinking so much as listening to the tap of my heart, like someone fixing a fence in the dark. I was not afraid. Anger is a clean light. It shows where to step. At 9, Leon and I sat in Ms. Alvarez's office and came out with paperwork that felt like a spine, a ladybird deed, a revocation of all prior powers of attorney, a directive that no document of mine be notarized in my home. Ms. Alvarez slid her card across the desk. Put my number on your fridge, she said. If anyone pressures you, call me. If anyone enters without permission, call the police, and then me. At 10, I went to the bank. My children waited near the brochure stand, trying to look casual. My son raised a hand. Mum, he said. Let's go together. I have my own appointment, I said. Inside the glass office, The manager stood and shook my hand. His tie had tiny sailboats. "I'm sorry for your loss," he said, and it sounded real. He closed the door and slid a folder toward me. Inside were screenshots, address changes requested, access expanded, a draft wire to a consolidated account that did not belong to me. "We stopped it," he said, but they were confident. "Thank you," I said. I signed forms requiring in-person verification for any change. He gave me copies. I tucked them beside the deed, two bones knitting. When I emerged, my son looked impatient. "Are we done?" he said. "We need to stop by the notary." "We're done," I said. "With the bank." I watched hope rise in him. "Now I need a loaf of bread." "Mom," my daughter said, a hand on my arm. "We're trying to help." "I know what help looks like," I said, and walked past them into the light. They came to the house that evening with movers, not a joke. Two men in matching shirts stood on my porch with a dolly and a roll of bubble wrap, their faces apologetic. "We were told to pack the upstairs items you're keeping," one said. "Just tell us what goes down to the—" "You're not entering this home," I said. I did not raise my voice. The camera near the eaves blinked its small red light. "The police have been notified of a trespass if you do. You will wait on the sidewalk and think about your choices." My son lifted his hands, palms out, as if I were a skittish horse. "Mom, this is temporary." "The basement," I said, "is rented." He blinked. My daughter laughed. "To who?" "To a nurse named Celeste," I said. "She moved in this afternoon, month to month, market rate, excellent references. She has a key and a pit bull who smiles. The lease is taped inside the door and filed with my attorney." "You can't just—" Greg began. "I can," I said, and I did. "You're grieving," my son said, trying a softer angle. "You're not thinking clearly." "I am thinking more clearly than I have in years," I said. "Leave my porch." They didn't. I dialed non-emergency. An officer came, tired and kind, rein on his shoulders. "Evening," he said. "What's the trouble?" "No trouble," I said. "An unwanted entry about to happen. I've asked them to leave. They refused." "She's the homeowner?" the officer asked my son. "Yes," my son said. "But that's enough," the officer said. "You need to leave now. If you have paperwork, take it to court. But you're not moving anyone this evening." They left in a flurry of hurt dignity. The movers rolled their dolly away. I locked the door. Celeste's footsteps were soft downstairs. Her dog's tail thumped the wall like a drum. I leaned my forehead against the door and let the anger drain out of me, slow and steady, like water from a rain barrel. "Grief is a fog," Daniel said, "but it lifts if you keep walking." The next morning, Ms. Alvarez filed my documents. Leon advised me to write a letter to my children, not an email, a letter. "Make it clean," he said. "Make it serious." I wrote, "I will not be moving to the basement. The deed has been secured. All prior permissions are revoked. You may visit by invitation only, and you will treat me with respect, or you will not enter. Any attempt to use my name, likeness, signature, or accounts without my consent will be pursued with the full weight of the law. I love you. I am not prey. I sent it certified." I taped a copy inside the front door where I could see it each morning. It steadied me. Then the twist showed its teeth. A notice from the county recorder about a home equity line I had not filed. The forgery was careful, My name bent just enough to mimic grief. I took the letter to Ms. Alvarez. She read it, her expression hardening. They moved faster than I thought, she said. But our filing beats theirs by a day. The title company froze the line when our deed hit their system. We'll give the sheriff what he needs. I don't want them arrested, I said, surprised by my own mouth. I want them stopped. We can do both, she said. Detective Rios, 50s, careful moustache, voice that never hurried, came to my kitchen and spread the documents like a map. It isn't the first time, he said. It doesn't get easier. I raised them, I said. I know their handwriting. My throat tightened. I know the way they lie when they think it's for a good cause. We'll record your statement, he said. We'll ask the notary why she stamped a signature at a time you were at a church with 30 witnesses. We'll ask the title company why they accepted a form delivered by a family representative who isn't on the deed. It might stop with warnings or it might not. But the line is frozen. Your house is safe if you want it to be. I want it to be, I said. And then, for now. Because when the fog lifted, I saw not only what they meant to take, but what I was still choosing to keep. The house was heavy with Daniel's breath. It held our arguments in the corners and our laughter in the hall. It was a good house. But safety isn't always staying still. I met with a realtor, a woman my age with sensible shoes and bright eyes, and told her I wanted a quiet sale, contingent on my timeline. I'll need a lease back for 6 months, I said. And I'll only accept an offer that allows me to remain until I decide. We can do that, she said. There's a couple who want exactly this street. They adore old houses and don't mind waiting. They remind me of you 20 years ago. When she left, I sat with Daniel's note in my palm. You're tougher than they remember. I wanted to be tougher and kinder, both. My son came with flowers and a rehearsed apology. We were clumsy, he said. We were scared. The world is different now. Scams and… You tried to forge my name, I said. His face closed like a fist. I didn't, he said too quickly. The detective will decide that, I said. I already have. Mom, he said, suddenly boyish. It's not fair. All those years we helped. You helped your father die, I said, the sentence nearly breaking my neck. That was a mercy and an honor. You do not get paid for mercy, and you do not steal honor. He looked down, color high on his cheeks. You're punishing us. I'm teaching something I should have taught you sooner, I said. Love is not permission. Grief is not a door you kick in. He left without looking back. I put the flowers in water because beauty is not guilty of the hands that bring it. The realtor brought me an offer. Full price, flexible closing. I accepted. The couple came with their small child to see the garden. The child ran his hand along the railing I built, and I felt, unexpectedly, relieved. When I told Leon, he nodded. What next? Next, I said. I buy a small apartment near the lake, light on the stairs, a balcony for geraniums. I keep the basement lease through winter so Celeste can save for her nursing exam. I set up a trust for my granddaughter's education so she doesn't pay for her parents' mistakes. I change my will. I take a dance class on Thursdays because Daniel always wanted to try and never did. And I lock my door with love and a key, both. He grinned. You sound busy. I'm alive, I said. Busy comes with it. The detective called a week later. Your notary has a lawyer, he said. She's talking. Your son and daughter are not. What happens now? I asked. likely a deferred judgment if they admit it and make restitution, or a court date if they don't. In either case, we have enough to draw a line. What line? That you're not a basement, he said. That you are a person. That could have been the end. But life is not tidy. It frays. You trim it. It frays again. The hospice bill arrived the same day as a receipt I didn't recognize. A down payment for estate transition services, signed by Greg. The company name sounded legitimate in the way a wolf looks like a dog at a distance. I called the number. A man with a pleasant voice introduced himself as Victor. We handle logistics for families in hard moments, he said. We inventory, clean, coordinate contractors, negotiate buyouts for unneeded property. Seamless. I didn't hire you, I said. Your family did, he said. We've already scheduled an appraisal for Thursday. We'd like to get eyes on the attic before the heat is bad. You will not enter my home, I said. Cancel everything. I understand this is emotional, he said smoothly, but we're already in motion. We want to lighten your load. Step away, I said, and hung up. I met Celeste on the landing with a stack of towels. Everything okay? She asked. She was in her 30s, steady hands, tired eyes. Her pit bull, Daisy, leaned against my knee, all muscle and trust. Scavengers, I said. One more round. I'll be home Thursday, she said. If anyone comes near the basement door, Daisy will tell them about boundaries. Thursday came with the soft, metallic sound of a van door. I looked out through the lace and saw two men in navy polos take photos of my porch. Celeste opened her door and stood with Daisy at her heel. Can I help you? She asked. We have an appraisal, one said, holding up a clipboard as if it were a badge. For what? She asked. For contents, he said. Estate services. You don't, she said. Leave. Daisy didn't growl. She didn't need to. She smiled in the way pit bulls do when they know their job. The men hesitated. One made a phone call. I dialed the non-emergency line again. By the time the officer arrived, the men had drifted to their van. The officer took their names, wrote a report, and left me a copy, in case the county wants it. He tipped his head toward Daisy. Good dog, he said. Daisy wagged. Leon came by that afternoon and browsed the website of Victor's company on his phone. They're not dumb, he said. They never touch the deed. They sell the contents, take a fat fee, advance money to a family representative, then disappear. If challenged, they blame miscommunication. It's legal because it's fog. I'm tired of fog, I said. So burn it off, he said. We can send a letter that names their conduct and revokes permission. We can copy the sheriff. We can make the fog expensive. We did. That night, Victor left a message on my voicemail, the pleasant, stripped away. You're making trouble that will hurt your family, he said. We were trying to help. I saved the message. Detective Rios added it to his file. We're not there yet, he said, but we're close enough to knock on doors. At the same time, the hospice sent a counselor I hadn't asked for. Her name was Anita, and she wore a green sweater the color of the inside of a cucumber. I don't want to talk about my feelings, I said at the door. I don't want to hear about them, she said cheerfully. I want to talk about your plan. We sat at the kitchen table that had held so many plans, chore charts, renovation sketches, tuition spreadsheets, hospice schedules. Anita wrote now, next, and later on a sheet of paper and drew lines under each. Now, she said, you eat, you sleep, you don't sign anything, you don't start yourself. You ask for rides, You say no twice, once out loud, once on paper. Next, paperwork, sale, lock the gates. Later, dance class, lake light, a chair you chose because you wanted to. I like you, I said. I like you more if you eat, she said, opening the casserole she'd brought. The smell of onions and thyme filled the kitchen. Daisy sighed as if the world were back to order. My daughter texted that evening. Are you safe? Can we talk? I stared at the words for a long time. Safety and talk had become the bargain chip and the trading floor. I typed, Saturday at 3, just you, no paperwork. Saturday came narrow and bright. She arrived alone, palms up. In the living room, she stopped and looked at Daniel's chair as if it were a grave. I'm sorry, she said, but the words slid on the surface of things. For what? I asked. For pushing, she said. For getting ahead of you. You forged a signature, I said. You hired a scavenger. Her face broke at the edges. Greg had a lead on a contract that would get us out from under the credit cards, she said. The company needed collateral. He said it was temporary. A bridge. He said we'd bring you in after. After you had my house, I said. After we stabilized things, she whispered. The basement was temporary. We were going to make it nice. We were going to… She put her hands over her eyes. I hated that smell down there when I was a teenager, and I told myself I wouldn't be the kind of person who put someone downstairs. But everything felt like a cliff, and the house was flat. And I waited. She had learned the trick of speaking just long enough for the subject to change. I had learned the trick of not letting it. I can love you and not trust you, I said when she ran out of words. Both can be true. Both are true. She took her hands down. What do you want me to do? She asked, small as a question. You will sign a statement that you will never act on my behalf without my written consent. You will return anything you have taken in my name. You will tell the detective the truth. You will get a job that is a job and not a scheme. And you will not bring a man into this house who uses my heir to make money. She'll leave me, she said, and I understood she meant her daughter, not her husband, or perhaps she meant herself. You will do it anyway, I said. If you want the bridge, build one you can stand on. She nodded, tears making a clean path down her face. Can I hug you? She whispered. Yes, I said. But understand this. A hug is not a contract. She laughed a little, watery and disbelieving, and we held each other for a long moment that did not change the past, but softened its edges. After she left, I went downstairs with a casserole for Celeste. We ate at her small table, while Daisy lay across our feet like a warm stone. You want to practice your testimony? Celeste asked around a mouthful. I didn't think it would come to that, I said. It might not, she said. But when you say hard things in a mirror first, they land where you mean them to. So I practiced saying, I am competent. I did not authorize this. I want boundaries recorded. Detective Rios called on Tuesday. The notary flipped, he said. She admits she stamped a signature without you present. She's naming a middleman, Victor. He paid cash. Of course he did, I said. We have a choice, he said. We can roll it into a bigger case. They've got elders in 3 counties. Or we can tie off your branch with a protective order and restitution. It comes down to appetite. I want both, I said. I want to be safe, and I want that man to find his days small and expensive. We'll start with you, he said. Then we'll see how far the rope reaches. That afternoon, my son texted, Can we meet with a mediator? I stared at the grey speech bubble until it faded. I typed, "Yes, Leon will attend. Ms. Alvarez will attend. Bring your lawyer if you like. Do not bring Victor. Do not bring Greg." We met in a conference room with Art that tried not to offend anyone. My son wore a suit that fit him as if he had borrowed it from a taller man. He did not look at me when he apologized. His lawyer did most of the talking, using words like misunderstanding and overreach. Ms. Alvarez used words like forgery and exploitation. Leon didn't speak until the end. "You have mistaken access for love," he said quietly. "You have mistaken your mother's grief for your opportunity. You will not do so again." We signed things. My son signed a restitution agreement, repaying the title company for the hours they wasted and reimbursing me for the fees I had paid to unspool his actions. He signed a consent order acknowledging that he would have no access to my accounts, mail, or property without written permission, that any attempt would be considered harassment. He signed because the alternative was a court date he would lose and a press clipping his boss would read. Afterward, on the sidewalk, he stood with his hands in his pockets and looked at my shoulder instead of my face. "Do you hate me?" he asked. "No," I said. "I'm angry with you. That's different." "I didn't think it would get so far," he said. "You never do," I said, and left it. Selling the house was like dismantling a body you loved and understood. Every drawer was a clavicle. Every nail I had hammered bent into a story. The realtor brought a stager who respected the house. She took down our photos and put up bowls of green apples. The apples looked like visitors who didn't mean to stay. Neighbours drifted through the open house, pretending not to be neighbours. Mrs. Russo, from 3 doors down, cried into her gardening gloves, "You were the first one to bring soup when my Tony fell." "We took turns breathing when our men were sick," I said. "That's what neighbours are for." On the second open house day, I made lemonade and sat on the back steps. The young couple stood in the yard and argued in whispers about whether they could afford a second bathroom. "Don't," I called. They jumped. "Don't rush the bathroom. Learn how the house breathes first." They laughed, startled into it, and came to sit with me. The woman, Mara, touched the railing. "Who built this?" "I did," I said. "It was too low, and I got tired of pretending I didn't notice." Her partner, Evan, gentle hands, nervous smile, looked at me like the house might be contagious. "Is it weird?" he asked. "Letting go?" "Yes," I said, "and necessary. Both are true." They made an offer that evening, full price, leaseback generous. We shook hands on my porch. Mara's hand was warm. Evan's was damp with nerves. They promised to keep the lilacs. I promised to leave the recipe card for lemon squares in the drawer under the stove, the one that sticks if you open it too fast. While the sale rolled toward closing, life insisted on being ordinary. Celeste worked double shifts. I learned to eat alone without making it a performance. I put my name on the waiting list for a lake apartment that had morning light like a soft hand on the cheek. Anita came on Tuesdays with bread and did not ask about feelings. Leon showed up on Thursdays with legal pads and stories from his time on the bench, stories that had no morals, but were filled with consequences. On a Saturday that smelled like rain and mulch, I went to the dance class. It took place in the community center gym, beneath a mural of swimmers who never got tired. I wore Daniel's navy sweater because it looked like courage. The instructor was a woman whose silver hair made her look like a lighthouse. "We're not here to be good," she said. "We're here to move and remember that we have edges." My first partner was a man who'd been a lineman and had the hands to prove it. Emilio, he said, I'm not much of a talker. Lucky for you, I said. I'm not much of a dancer. We shuffled. We miscounted. We laughed once, and it didn't feel like a betrayal. When the song ended, he said, I like the way you don't apologize before you start. I've run out of apologies, I said. I'm rationing them now. He nodded, as if this were a good plan. Detective Rios called after class. We're going forward, he said. The county is threading your case into the bigger one. You'll get a subpoena for a hearing. It's mostly paper. You'll sit, you'll answer a few questions, you'll go home. I'll sit 2 rows back, looking bored on purpose. Do I need to bring anything? I asked. Your truth, he said, and your patience. On the day of the hearing, I wore the suit I had kept for weddings and goodbyes. The courthouse smelled like paper warmed by dust. The notary sat with her lawyer, spine soft as a rope left in the rain. Victor sat 2 tables over, handsome in the way of men who spend more on teeth than books. He didn't look at me. That was his first mistake. Men like that win when you don't exist. The prosecutor laid the facts out simply. Dates, times, documents, stamps placed on pages that were not under the hand that supposedly signed them. The notary spoke in a voice that sounded borrowed. She said Victor had told her families did this all the time, that the law allowed a reasonable accommodation when elders were inconvenient. She said cash came wrapped in a rubber band. She'd never thought about where it came from before, and now she couldn't stop thinking about it at 3 in the morning. I believed her regret. I did not fabricate. My turn came with a chair that pinched the back of my knee and a microphone that made me sound like a ghost in a tunnel. The questions were not hard. Did you authorize this? No. Did you sign? No. Do you have concerns for your safety? I have boundaries. Do you want the court to order Mr. Victor and his agents to stay away from you and your property? Yes. Do you understand that your children's cases will be handled separately? Yes. Victor's lawyer asked to cross-examine. Do you recall telling your son you would think about the basement? He asked, with that mildness men use to dress a trap. I said I would think, I answered. I thought. Did you ever put in writing that you would not be moving? Yes, I said. Certified mail. A copy is in evidence. Isn't it true you were overwhelmed after your husband's death, and you might not have fully grasped? My husband was ill for a long time, I said. I had practice. I grasped. From 2 rows back, Detective Rios yawned extravagantly. The judge hid a smile. It was a small moment, but it shifted the room. Victor looked at me then, quickly, as if I'd spoken his name in the dark. The court granted the protective order, clean and bright. The county filed charges against Victor's company for fraud, unlawful practice, and a list of smaller evils that added up like coins. The notary took a plea and lost her stamp. The bigger case would take months, maybe years, but the rope was around the right neck. My children's matter went to a diversion program with conditions, restitution, classes on financial ethics and elder abuse, a year of supervised good behavior. They had to write letters acknowledging what they'd done. The letters were dreadful, full of the passive voice and the word if, but they were typed on paper that bent under their names like steel under too much heat. It would have to do. Closing day arrived. The young couple sat at my table and signed papers that did not erase me. We shook hands. We took a clumsy photo together in the doorway. Mara, Evan, their child squirming like a newly caught fish, me in Daniel's sweater. We'll take care of it, Evan said. rubbing the doorframe like a shoulder of a friend. I know, I said, and I did. I moved into the lake apartment with a man named Mike carrying the heavy end of my bureau and swearing into his sleeve in a respectful way. The balcony was small, the sky large. In the morning, gulls shouted like cheerful drunks. In the evening, the water folded itself into the dark with a sound like breath. I put geraniums in clay pots because clay forgives. I hung Daniel's hat by the door and told it the weather. Celeste kept the basement through winter, then moved into a place closer to the hospital. She still came by on her day off with Daisy, who remembered where the treats were kept. We drank coffee and let the wind do its work. On Thursdays, I went to dance class. Emilio learned my tells, the way I stiffened when a song shifted keys, the way my hands forgot and then remembered his. We were two people who did not owe each other a future. It was a relief. My granddaughter came on Saturdays with a backpack full of markers and questions. We walked the trail by the water and counted ducks like math could hold the world together. She asked why I sold the house. I told her because a house is not a person, and I needed to live where the light reached me first thing in the morning. She asked whether her mother was in trouble. I told her her mother was learning. Spring thawed everything except the past. The county sent me a notice that Victor had fled the state. The prosecutor sent a second notice that he'd been caught boarding a plane with a suitcase full of cash and watches that looked like small suns. It should have pleased me. It didn't. I felt only the tired satisfaction of a task done. I did, however, enjoy the day Ms. Alvarez called to tell me the civil suit had settled. Victor's company would pay damages to the elders they'd targeted, including me. It wouldn't make me rich. It would pay for a railing on my balcony and an extra month of groceries for Celeste when she took her boards. I signed the release with a pen I'd brought myself, at a table that was not in my kitchen. In June, Mara knocked at my apartment door with a jar of jam and a photo. "We found this behind the laundry sink," she said, holding out the picture. Daniel and me, younger than our children are now, covered in paint and laughing at something off camera. There was a thumbprint of blue in my hair. "I think it belongs to you," she said. I put the photo on my mantel, next to Leon's business card, Ms. Alvarez's refrigerator magnet, and the card from Detective Rios that said, "Call if you need to." It looked like a new kind of family, the kind you assemble after the kind you built failed you for a minute and then tried to learn. One evening in July, my daughter came alone, her shoulders squared in a way that looked like work. She stood on my balcony and stared at the water. "I finished the classes," she said. "I paid the restitution. I got a job at the daycare again. It's small hours, but it's honest." "That's a good start," I said. She put an envelope on the table. "This is the money we borrowed from you without asking," she said. "Not all of it. Some of it went to fees and mistakes, but this is what we can do now. I wanted to hand it to you and not the mail." I didn't pick up the envelope. "Thank you," I said. "I'm proud that you brought it back the way it left." She nodded. "Greg moved out," she said. "He said I picked you over him. I told him I picked the truth over him." "I'm sorry," I said. And I was. Not for his leaving, but for the ache that would follow her around for a while like a new shadow. "Do you think you can ever trust me again?" she asked. "I think trust is a ladder," I said. "You climb it one step at a time. Sometimes you rest. Sometimes you go down a step to find your footing. You don't jump." She laughed, the sound small and hopeful. "Okay," she said. "Okay." Later, after she left, I opened the envelope. Inside was a stack of 20s and a note in her round schoolgirl hand. I'm learning. I put the money in a tin on a high shelf and the note on the fridge next to Ms. Alvarez's magnet. Daisy stared up at it as if it were a biscuit. Autumn came and painted every tree like a child with too many crayons. I bought a coat with a collar that stood up to the wind. I learned the names of my neighbours, the ones who kept their plants alive through neglect and prayer, the ones who watered twice a day and scolded the sun. I went to the farmer's market and pretended to know what to do with fennel. I danced on Thursdays and didn't apologize for my feet. One Thursday, Emilio and I sat on the bench outside the centre. He rubbed his knees. I was married for 42 years, he said. I don't know how to be with someone without making a plan. You don't have to be with me, I said. You can just dance with me. He nodded. That might be the plan then. We didn't kiss. We didn't need to. We knew where our hands went and when to let go. Winter rolled in mean and bright. The lake froze at the edges and pretended to be still. The county's case against Victor moved like a machine you could hear, but not see. My son kept his distance. He sent a Christmas card with a photo of him standing next to a car I hoped he could afford. My daughter came on Christmas Eve with my granddaughter and a pie she had baked. We watched a movie we had watched when she was small, the one with the snow and the bell that rings when an angel gets a promotion. I cried because I'm allowed now. Crying isn't permission either. It's merely water leaving the body. On New Year's Day, Leon and Ms. Alvarez came for black-eyed peas and cornbread. We ate at my small table and toasted with ginger ale. To the year of no basements, Leon said. To the year of doors that lock from the inside, Ms. Alvarez added. To the year of clean paper, I said. In February, the big case finally made the news in a way that made strangers angry in their kitchens. Victor pleaded to lesser counts in exchange for pointing out a web of others, men who wore good socks and said asset as if it were a prayer. He would serve time. He would emerge smaller, perhaps. Or not. The world doesn't always do what you want with your enemies. That's why you build the life you can live in without listening for footsteps. Spring again. The young family invited me to see the lilacs bloom. The child had renamed the tomato plant after a new cartoon. Mara had painted the kitchen the soft green of Anita's sweater, though she didn't know it. The railing I built was burnished by hands that weren't mine and that felt right. I kept my apartment by the lake. I kept my dance class. I kept my edges. I changed my emergency contact to Celeste, not because my children were banished, but because she would answer at 3 in the morning without asking how the call affected her. I set up the education trust for my granddaughter and mailed the paperwork to the school. I learned to make soup for one without crying into the pot. Sometimes I failed. Daisy accepted both outcomes. One afternoon, I sat with Anita on the balcony, feet on the second rail, the forbidden way that feels Italian. Do you feel safe? She asked. I feel awake, I said. If danger comes, safety is a thing I'll do, not a thing I'll wait for. She nodded. That's the trick, she said. Grief makes people sleepy. Anger wakes them. Wisdom teaches them not to live on coffee. We watched the water lift and lay itself down, patient as a nurse. Do you ever think about the basement? She asked. I think about the word, I said. Basement as a verb. They tried to basement me. I conjugate it in my head for practice. I basement, you basement, he basements. And then I set the word down and do the opposite. What's the opposite? She asked. Balcony, I said, and she laughed, and the sound escaped into the air like something grateful to be free. The detective sent a final letter in June. Case concluded. Protective order remains. Restitution completed. Notary barred. Copies enclosed. The letter was printed on heavy paper that looked like it wanted to be important. I folded it and put it in my file next to Daniel's note. You're tougher than they remember. I had been. I was. One evening, when the light was butter thick and forgiving, my son called. I'm at the center, he said. They're having a seminar on financial planning for middle age. They're using me as a cautionary tale. I let the silence stretch until it meant something. That sounds useful, I said. It is, he said. I wanted to say I'm still sorry, and I know that doesn't move the needle. It moves it a millimeter, I said. Keep calling. He laughed softly, surprised by mercy. Okay, he said. Okay. He was learning, the way his sister was learning. None of us were who we had been. That was the only reward I trusted, the slow, stubborn shift of people doing their homework. On the anniversary of Daniel's death, I woke early and walked to the lake with a thermos of coffee and the photo Mara had found. I sat on a bench and watched the light do what it always does. Arrive, unasked and generous. A man sat down at the other end of the bench. It was Emilio. He didn't say anything. He just tipped his chin toward the water. After a while, he said, Want to practice the box step without music? And I said yes. And we stood, two old people moving carefully on a path where children had chalked stars. I tell you all this not because I love a tidy moral, but because I love a clean edge. Because you need to hear that there were carpet samples and a salesman's smile and a basement that was supposed to hold me like a storage bin. And there were also doors I closed, papers I didn't sign, calls I made, and a dog who smiled while watching the steps. There was anger that burned fog, and there were hands that learned how to lead without pinning me in place. People will say I was lucky, a retired judge for a friend, a smart lawyer, a detective who cared. I was lucky. I was also ready. I was also the woman who built the stairs and remembered where the nails were when it was time to pull one out. If you are waiting for the grand gesture, you won't find it here. The revenge you're after is simply this. I did not move to the basement. I sold my house to people who will love it in a way that doesn't require my erasure. I took my name back from papers that wanted to own me. I made my children put their names in ink under promises that could be enforced. I danced on Thursdays. I lived on a balcony. I ate soup. I laughed once in a while, and it didn't feel like treason. When my granddaughter asks what happened, because someday she will ask with the serious face of a girl who knows words can hurt and heal, I will tell her. On Tuesday, I buried your grandfather. On Wednesday, they tried to bury me. On Thursday, I called a man who knew the law and a woman who knew how deeds work. On Friday, I fed a dog. On Saturday, I wrote a letter in ink. On Sunday, I rested. And on Monday, I started the life I wanted without asking permission. I am not cozy. I am warm. I am not tucked away. I am here. And I am not done.
My grandma told me this story. I have many more stories. Subscribe so you don't miss the most interesting things.